absolutely exhausted when I come off the stage. The first thing I have to do is put my head and my hands and my feet into a big tray of ice to bring my body temperature down again. Because, you know, everything starts swelling. You can feel pulse all the way through your body, all the way to your fingers and your toes. You go past the point every night. You go past the point you should go every night, and I know it, and the dancers know it. I mean, doing an encore is more than we should have to do, but doing 2 and 3 encores, that takes its toll physically, emotionally, mentally. That audience is sucking the energy out of you. They're just sucking it out of you every night, and they demand more. They want to see you go past that limit. They want to see the 14th and 15th round. They don't want it to get over at 12. You know, that's when they feel like it's heating up. And so that's what they waited all night to see, and that's what you have to give them.
There was quite a bit of criticism around when I decided to do a South Bank show with Michael Flatley. We'd gone past the stage, I hope, where starting with Paul McCartney meant we were accused of doing non-arts programs, even though McCartney has outlasted all composers of his generation from the 60s. Never mind. Flatley was a stage too far. We did dance, we'd done Nureyev, we'd done the Royal Ballet, we'd done Miling, won a Prix Italie for that, so on. But Michael Flatley, Irish dancing, what was that? But I'd seen him, and I'd read a bit about him. And first of all, he was a high-definition performer of great quality as a performer. And secondly, I loved the background. I saw some old film of Irish people in the, must have been 20s and 30s, in the village halls, dancing and doing the Irish dancing. And it reminded me of my background. Village halls, dancing, and people who are normally sober and quiet and conservative in their demeanor and mien, exploding. And I found that same local energy bursting out in Flatley. Did your mother take you off to Irish dancing lessons when you were young? Did it start in that sort of determined way?
Yeah, well, I was about, let me see, I would have been about 11 years old when she took me to dance classes first. And you know, we were down playing baseball, my brother and I, and she sent my sister down and said, come on, you gotta go. And we went home, and I had no idea what was going on. They took us to dance classes, and the first night, I don't really remember it all that well, but I remember thinking to myself, I don't know. I don't know about this.
I like the fact that he'd come out of a background where he had to fight all the way. I've always been attracted by people from that sort of background, and the 20th century is full of artists of the highest caliber who've come out of not dissimilar backgrounds. His was very tough. Irish family, went over to America, 5 children, father a builder. He started in building, he did all sorts of stuff, but he fought his way, literally. He got into the Golden Gloves final as a fighter, and then took up this Irish dancing. I've seen a lot of performers. I've rarely seen anybody work as hard at a performance, as physically hard and as emotionally hard, and put himself on the line as much, because he was changing a very traditional, tight, strict art form where you couldn't even use your arms. Basically, it was the anti-sex dancing of Ireland. The priest said that you could move everything below the knee, but everything above the knee had to be frozen, as it were, immaculately. And so these Irish dancers, men and women, did extraordinary things with their calves and ankles and feet, but above that, nothing happened.
It has to be so straight and so strict. Your arms have to be a certain way. It has to be very, very rigid and very strict. You know, you've got to keep your knees together when you do certain movements. You've got to keep your kicks to a certain level. For me, it was so hard to swallow.
They were in a sort of, well, not a sort of, a straitjacket of their own making, of the making of the Catholic priests, actually. He was tempted to do more than that, and he did.
There were nights you just get so pumped up and the audience is fine and the music was so brilliant. I would go out and one night, instead of doing a spin, I did a triple spin and the audience starts screaming. So what do you think is going to happen? I'm going to do that every night, naturally. I'm going to do 5 or 6 kicks in a row. Because why? I was always told you can't do that. So I started doing them over my head, 5, 6 in a row, and the audience would start screaming. It had to be a certain way that had the drama and power and passion of Ireland, and no one had ever done it.
Here was this extremely talented guy dancing, making it look so masculine. It was as if watching it made me say, it's okay, it's cool to dance.
When I was a little kid in school, I can go back to when I was 6 years old, I used to get in trouble for dreaming all the time. That carried on through high school. I'd be staring out the window and they'd yell at me, will you stop staring out the window, what the hell are you dreaming about? And I was always visualizing these things, and the things I got in trouble for dreaming those days are the things I'm doing today. I can't encourage that enough for any children or any people that want to do anything in life. If you visualize it and see it clear enough and live in color, it's going to happen. I had a dream that I wanted to have a big show of my own, and where I thought I could have a line of, 30 or 40 or 50 dancers and a full orchestra and a big band and, singers, and I just thought that there was such a market for this, particularly in America. Next thing came Bill Whelan and the music. He came in with a tape of music, and it was da 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 da. That was an off-time, strange time signature. I'd never danced in that time signature, and it was confusing, but it was good. It was really catchy. And then I asked him to create a piece for me in 2/4 time because that's what I love to dance in, and he did, and it was great. I mean, it was deadly. The main key, I think, was the end. That was our biggest fight. To get him to come back to 6/8 time at the end. Because in order for the audience to have something to hold on to coming home, it had to be a steady beat. It had to be a steady beat. It couldn't be an off-time piece. Do you know what I mean? They needed something to grab onto, to feel like the ball got to this guy, the second guy got it, the third guy got it, the fourth guy got it, it's in. He fought me on that, but he gave in, and I think that was the best move. That was it. That was the clincher right there, man. That's when we nailed it, and it was his best music, I think, still. It's fabulous. That end piece is the one that rocks out.
Do you think the power came from the combination of you and the line? Because that seems to me to be, I mean, to see a terrific dancer out front is terrific, but then there's something very moving about a line. It's like a line of men marching into battle. It's a line of people doing the same exciting thing, and then you add the music and so on. And it's very dramatic, isn't it?
I believe the magic is in the combination of the two. Can't have a good army without a good leader.
Were you surprised at the reaction to that Eurovision Song Contest? Because it was quite tremendous, wasn't it?
What I didn't expect was that it was going to take the whole world by storm overnight.
spectacular performance you have ever seen.
Riverdance was a huge international success, rocketing Michael Flatley into stardom. However, relations with the producers soured. Just before, was it the second season in London?
That's right.
That's right. There was this bus stop, and you and Riverdance parted company. Now, what happened there?
Well, I suppose it's real simple to figure out. It's contractual problems, but the three main sticking points were A, they wanted me not to talk to the press because they didn't want the star to be bigger than the show. They were looking to make a generic show. I thought that was unfair because I'd always pushed Riverdance, 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 and I always intended to do that. But I was starting to become bigger and bigger, and my name was more well-known, and I'm not sure that that was comfortable for them, although I wouldn't want to speculate as to why they put that clause in. Two, they wanted copyright. They wanted to own all my work. I thought that that was very unfair. And the most important thing is that they wanted 100% artistic control over my work and how I dance. I thought that was just out of line. The only thing I can tell you is I'm proud of myself. I walked away from £50,000 a week just so I could dance the way I wanted to dance. And at the time, everyone said, look, just sign the contract and dance. And it was the most tempting thing to do that, but it would have been the worst thing. It couldn't have been more wrong. It couldn't have been more wrong to do that. I would have given up everything. I would have given up everything. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I'd have done that. No way. It's terrible to do that to somebody. You know, I worked too friggin' hard for that. You know, there's a lot of different details involved here. But the night before to get a phone call, that wasn't fair play, I think. And
the night before the opening night?
Yeah.
Just got a phone call saying?
Yeah, their attorney called my attorney and saying, that's it. And my attorney called me, and I was in the shape of my life. I felt great. I just never doubted that we'd go through with it. And he called me and he said, it's time to put the chairs back on the tables. That's the words he used. And I said, what is that supposed to mean? He said, it's over, man, that's it. They decided they're going ahead with a generic show. They're just gonna, you know, make it a generic show. And I didn't even answer him, I just put the phone down. And that was it. It was over. I talked to my father that night, and he could have, you know, he could have said 1,000,001 things. He could have been rancorous or acrimonious. He could have, I mean, he could have just flew off the handle. But I just have to say that was maybe the best phone conversation I've ever had, because we don't get to talk that often, my father and I, because he's a businessman and he's always so busy, and I am always so busy. And he said, look, Mike, you built Riverdance. Everyone in Ireland knows it. You can always build another one. You got to believe in yourself.
Were you upset by some of the press reaction?
Let them do all the talking. Let them say what they want. Let them make accusations. Let everyone else do the talking. Let me get to business, get back to work right away. I could have done two things. I had some money stashed away. I could have ran home with my tail between my legs. Or I can get up and prove that I did this. The only way that I can prove that I did the first one is to do a new one. And that's what I decided to do. About 11 days later, I was in bed and I just sat up straight in bed, and I remembered this idea that I had for this dance. And it turns out to be Planet Ireland in the end of my show. I called a meeting at Harvey Goldsmith's office in London, the promoter. There was 10 people at the meeting. I spent an hour explaining in detail what that show was, from the opening all the way to the pyrotechnics at the end. I waited to hear what the people, the businessmen and the financiers in the room had to say, and I just kept quiet. And then one of them said, I'll pay for it. Then the other one said, I'll pay for it.
And then I said, as long as I knew they said that, and I said, no thanks, guys, I'll pay for it. I'll pay for it. But I wanted to wait until I was, you know, that was my last little, okay, I'm on the right track. So I ended up financing it myself, all of it. And it was a huge chance, and we opened in Dublin.
Was there still a bit of fallout from the Riverdance rupture still? Yeah,
absolutely.
So did you go to Dublin deliberately?
Yeah. Yes. Not for any bad reasons, but really because it's like returning to the scene of the crime, more than anything else. I had to, it's an Irish show. It has to be born out of Ireland, and it is born out of Ireland. And I think that was maybe the most difficult challenge that I will ever face.
Michael Flatley has charisma. I think it's coming out of every pore. Every interview you watch, every performance you watch, there's this self-belief, and that self-belief backs up his passion for what it is that he does. He steps on stage and totally believes 200% what it is that he's doing, and the audience can pick up on that.
Every night just before a performance, Flatley puts himself through an extraordinary ritual. He takes to the stage alone, running through the steps, kicking, punching the air, circling around with ever-increasing velocity, physically and mentally psyching himself up for the show ahead. By the time the curtain rises, he's pumped up and ready to go. So there's that side of him, the great, ferocious success story. There's also what we did with it in our own, obviously modest way. But I made the program, showed it to somebody in LWT at the time, I can't remember who, Nick Elliott, John Burt, doesn't really matter. I showed it to somebody and they said, oh, well. And then somebody came back and said, we've got a 6 o'clock slot. Well, that for us was like saying, lean down and pick up a gold nugget. We went out at 10:30 if we were lucky, but it was 10:40, 10:50, and said, 6 o'clock? So I went back into the cutting rooms with the director, Brian Izzard, and we spent a day and a half recutting the film for speed. I think the first film we did was a good study of the sort of thing which we, as often as not always, but as often as not did on the South Bank show. The film we cut was cut for speed. A lot of children will really love this. They love the music, they love the dancing, they love everything about it. Let's move it.
Next.
And it got 8.9 million, never forget that. By far the biggest audience we'd ever had. And I was pleased for him, because, I don't know why, he seems a man who's, well, he's very sure of himself as a dancer, he's very sure of himself as a choreographer, he's very sure of himself as a rock star, really, which he went into that, ascended into that stratosphere. But I think he wanted people to see this sort of dancing, to see what this sort of dancing could bring to the culture of the time.
You know, you can tell when the guys do some of the big troupe numbers, and you can tell when some of the women do their numbers that it's inside in them. This is not something that, you know, we've had to teach them move by move, move this little finger here, turn here, smile. When you go behind the curtain, smile. It doesn't work that way here. This is raw stuff. It comes out raw, and it's inside. It's from way down inside. And I think there's no question that years ago, people just danced with their hearts. That's the only thing that guided them. What I have done is just uncovered the passion that's inside in me as a human, as a man.